there's a famous internet question going around: are there more doors or wheels in the world? I say, which one is there more of? Bowling balls or pedophiles?
You do just randomly start doing that. I for some reason assumed that you just like ranted for a little bit and cut in at an undetermined point in like post editing. I didn't realize that was instant start.
To answer your question, Brister, you can use one to get rid of the other.
I was gonna say, in recent news, my local bowling alley got closed down. They won't say why. So yeah, my school's out of a gym teacher. Anyway, welcome to the Dabble and Babble podcast. I'm your gracious host as ever, Brister XD, or you can just call me Brian.
And I'm your gracious co-host as ever, Pipsqueak, or you can just call me Beth.
I'm a figment of your imagination.
We have a figment of our imagination on this episode, our favorite cutie patootie cognito hazard.
What?
Would you like to introduce yourself?
Yes. I am Nimu. Pretty much just Nimu. I don't really have a cool username. Unless you count _nimble_.
Cutie
Which is a
patootie.
YouTube channel with one video on it that better be linked in the description or I can't say that on the internet. But Brian, I am making threats. You know the kind of threats that I make.
I'm still stuck on the whole cutie patootie incognito cloak and dagger fucking snuffleupagus bullshit. Fucking Pip over here just snat it out.
Do you not know what a cognito hazard is?
No.
Oh my
You are
fucking
one.
god. No, Brister's a mimetic type hazard.
What do these words mean?
SCP? Question mark?
Yes, it's SCP terminology.
Oh, okay.
I knew a thing.
Yeah, okay. My parents stuck together, so I don't know.
Jesus Christ.
I don't think my parents like each other. You can put that in the video.
My
We're
parents
starting
don't
off-
like each other. They're still married, so what does it say about you guys over there having
My
two
parents-
Christmases? Fucking nerds.
My parents very much love each other and are still together.
Woo!
You know,
Yes.
I say divorce lawyer is a Keter class SVP. That's the only joke I could possibly make about the SCP Foundation.
Right. So, on today's episode of
Speaking
the
of-
Dabble and Babble podcast,
Yeah, speaking
we've
of
got-
SCPs,
we've got a very special episode lined up for you guys. As I am transgender, and there's one very important thing to the trans experience. You know, it might not be trying to fit into society or starting HRT or whatnot. It's every game ever made by Miyazaki and From Software. Specifically, we're going to be talking about the Darksouls series.
Well, if we're
And we're-
talking about Miyazaki games, Dark Souls 2 doesn't count. He had nothing to do with that.
He liked it.
Did he?
he liked it.
I'm pretty sure that's why he made Elden Ring.
He's on record saying he liked Dark Souls 2.
At some
Yep.
point in the Dark Souls 3 development cycle, someone spilled the beans. It was like, Mr. Miyazaki, we made Dark Souls 2 without you. And he's like, what? Well, now I have to make my own game with power stancing.
He liked Dark Souls 2. But yes,
He's the only one.
You see,
it wasn't so bad,
Yeah.
according to the internet.
yeah, you see, this interaction. This is why the episode's happening. See, since I am not part of the trans community, I have never played a Dark Souls game or Souls-like for that matter. I played Sekiro, fucking Shadow Heroes, died Ninjago twice, and whatever the fuck it was called. I played it for like 30 minutes, and I thought, I don't like this, and so I
I
returned
was
it.
there for all of those 30 minutes, and you were fucking awful at it.
Yeah, also, I didn't feel like getting good at it, because I have other games I want to play. Because I looked at the fucking... The first step was covered in glass, and I looked at the fucking St. Peter's ladder, each step having more and more glass on it. And I thought, I don't care if there's a Snick Spar on the top of that. I'm not going to get it.
If you'd like to see what games my co-host would rather play instead of Sekiro Shadows Die Twice, please look up Brister XD on Steam and go to the bottom of his Steam wishlist.
He ranked his games backwards. If you feel like sending in a gift, please don't order us pizza. Just buy something at the bottom of Brister XD's Steam wishlist.
Specifically for him.
Yes.
Yes, we are
You act
here
as if
to-
that's a sabotage in my career. That's just saving me money. Anyway,
We're
yeah.
here to discuss the Dark Souls trilogy 1 through 3, basically the lore, some of the characters, ideas, and we're here to explain it to Brister in 1 hour. We've been given 1 hour to do this before we are never allowed to talk to about Dark Souls again on the podcast.
That is true. I will. I mean, you could just like not say you're talking about Dark Souls and just start mentioning stuff. Even at this episode, I probably won't. I won't understand, so it'll be like a dog whistle thing.
Right.
Instead of saying milk is okay and summoning the white nationalist, you'll just say like, Asher's got that power stance, and be like, yeah, I guess the trans are coming out today. I feel like I don't even know if there's a character named Asher. I feel like there is.
There probably is.
Anyway.
But yeah.
Also, another twist on this video, on this episode. I had some trepidation on doing such a solo topic episode for the sake of the funnies, and that there would be less of the funnies. So to guarantee that there are some funnies while still staying on topic, I have looked up something of a goldmine. It is called Darksouls, which is a subreddit dedicated solely to dad jokes based on the Souls universe.
Oh boy.
I've read through several of these. I've not saved any of them because I do not understand a single one. So I ever fear that there is a lull in excitement or something has gone too drab, I will interrupt and say one of these, and based on your reaction, I will say whether they are good or bad.
Why don't you start us off with one?
Here's a simple one. I hate checking Reddit after I successfully parry. It's all reposts.
Ah.
You know, Brian, I've always said you're a bad person and you don't deserve to have a podcast.
Yeah.
And I just want to reiterate that is true.
Okay.
Oh, we're starting off strong. But all right.
I'm not gonna be able to say half of these names correctly, so you probably won't even get it.
If we're gonna talk Dark Souls, we got to start from the beginning. Dark Souls 1 and generally the lead up to Dark Souls 1, or literally everything Gwyn tries fails in his face, so he sets himself on fire and he somehow fucks that up too.
Alright. Might have to do that a little slower for me.
If you want to start at the beginning, you have to start at the Age of Ancients. When the world was young and grey.
Young, dumb, and full of
Great stone dragons inhabited a world filled with great stone trees.
It was very dark, foggy, like mist had rolled over the entire land, and there was no disparity. Everything just was stone and lifeless. There was no other states of existence. It was cold and rocky.
So okay, so
the dragons lived forever, and the trees lived forever.
All right, so we're starting off in Detroit. Got it.
And nothing ever changed.
That is until everything changed out of nowhere.
Yeah, we get to ya boy, No Legs, Thief the Scaleless, the Great Crystal Pale Drake.
One of the dragons who, I believe, he had a strong hatred of his own kind.
Yes.
Is it called?
He gave up his stone scales in exchange for great magic. However, stone scales are what give dragons their immortality. So, in learning this magic, he became mortal and began to hate the dragons that were still immortal by a choice that he made.
So what you're saying is this guy said, "I'm gonna make a lifestyle choice," and then everyone else called him Domehead Drake, and then he got pretty mad.
Pretty much.
No, more like he made a lifestyle choice. It was a bad lifestyle choice, and then he hated everybody else for not making it.
Sounds a lot like the guy who does coke at the party and is upset no one else will do it. It's like, why don't I have fun? How you don't have fun? It's like, this is a baby shower. Where'd you even get that?
That's basically how it went. And I believe around this time, similar to the Big Bang, fire appeared in the world.
Yes.
And with fire came disparity. There is now a difference between life and death. cold and warmth, light and dark.
Yes.
And with fire came soul. Soul is very nebulous. When we think of a soul, we think in the real world, we think of it as basically the thing that pilots our flesh mecha. It's some kind of quality about living things that makes them different from non-living things.
It is.
In Darks,
It is post-nut clarity solidified.
Sure. In Dark Souls, that's what souls are, but they're also a fuel source, and they fuel fire, and they're a product of fire. They're clarity, little echoes of creation that are housed within basically every little thing.
Post-nut clarity, yes.
Yes. And from the souls, various, I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Nimue, the undead were born, or sprung from that?
No, that
Okay.
was later. The undead are a product of Gwyn doing Gwyn things.
I'm just trying to remember what Gwyn actually is at the
Gwyn's
start of
big
this.
MLM. He's just some guy. So,
Alright.
okay.
So
There were
life's
four
continue.
inheritors. 4 inheritors of the First Flame. 4 inheritors of the Great Souls. There was Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight. And by sunlight, we mean lightning, because Dark Souls.
Yep.
The Witch of Izalith, great pyromancer and sorcerer. The Grave Lord Nido.
He's just a skull guy.
Yes,
I really wish it was more complicated. He is just a man made of skulls.
Master of the Dead. And a fourth that Gwyn would rather you forgot about. The Furtive Pygmy, the first man.
Yep. Humans weren't a normal race. They stemmed from something called the Furtive Pygmy. And they were given a very special soul. They were given the Dark Soul,
Yes.
which is the name of the franchise. Fun fact that everybody already knows, Dark Souls was going to be named Dark Ring after an in-game item, but they changed it because they found out almost too late that it was slang for butthole in the West.
As if that stopped anyone that has ever played Dark Souls. Try
Okay.
finger, butthole.
Okay, quick recap. Everything is Detroit, Walden Gray. Fire just fucking appears, knocking everyone kind of silly.
Spontaneous combustion, yes.
Yeah. There's now souls, which are like fuel and everything for this new fire. And now there are 4 assholes just worshipping it, guarding it.
They take bits of it. They take the 4 strongest aspects of the fire.
Yeah.
Okay.
They are
themselves.
its inheritors.
Yeah.
4 mega moths feed off the fire and flames.
Yeah.
Some asshole can't tell between sun and lightning. Some book nerd. A grave robber and or necrophile. A self-necrophile. Necrophilie selfish? I don't know. And
You know the Grim Reaper
I don't
from
think
the,
Nido knows what sex is.
you know Grim from the Grim Adventures of Billy and Mandy?
Yeah.
Imagine him.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Okay, so Graham from Billy and Mandy, and then humanity as a whole.
Yeah.
Yes.
So they basically have the strongest aspects of the flame.
Oh, okay.
So they come together and they begin thinking to themselves, what do we do with it? Let's start a war with the dragons.
Well, as I said, the flame sparked to life underground. All these people lived underground in fear of the dragons in the world above. Until ya boy, No Legs, Seath, rolled up and was like, hey, I hate all the other fucking dragons. And Gwyn was like, well, what do you want us to do about that? And Seath was like, lightning.
Pretty much. Gwyn found out. So the thing about the stone skin of the dragons is you can't really do much to stone. However, Gwyn found out his lightning could pierce their stone scales, their indestructible stone scales. And so they used lightning, death magic, secrets of Seath, and a lot of bodies and warred with the dragons. Why does lightning work on dragons when flying is a natural insulator? I don't know.
Why does lightning pierce stone? A famously not very conductive thing.
I guess maybe there's some flesh juice
Why?
beneath.
Why is Gwyn not Solaire's father?
We've been over this.
Because
We've
he
been
doesn't
over-
praise the sun.
We've
I
been
understand
over
that
this,
joke.
Miyazaki. We've been over this, Miyazaki. Ground types are immune to electric types. You didn't beat Brock, and we all know it.
Are we just gonna let Brister get away with the joke he just told?
I'm not going to acknowledge it. That's not letting him get away with it. That's pretending it never happened.
Fair enough. So this first war happens, and they wipe out all the dragons. Keith is basically allowed to exist as a thanks for helping us out. And the Age of Fire begins, where
Most of-
kingdoms... Oh, continue.
Most of the dragons, Gwyn adopts one.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, sorry I
Aside-
killed all your homies. I'm gonna keep you around as like a pet.
So
Our
yes,
dog for the ringed city, but we'll get to that later.
So the Age of Fire begins, and there is some things to note. Gwyn has a bunch of kids around this point, and one of them says, "Hey, I feel kind of bad about killing all the dragons. I'm going to go live with them." So he goes off and becomes the hardest boss in base game Dark Souls 3. But yes, the Age of Fire begins, and in this, kingdoms begin rising. Humanity spreads across the world, and you get a pretty traditional fantasy setting. As the world is colonized, nations are formed, kingdoms are built, cool adventures happen. But there's
They invent
a little
football.
yeah, they invent football. People get really into it. They end up sacking Anne Orlando a few times over whose team won.
They decide to make a more peaceful sport and call it League of Legends. That backfires as well.
I'm
But-
going to say the word boletaria, and we're not going to talk about it.
There is one thing, though. As Gwyn starts his Age of Fire, he becomes very paranoid. The thing about Gwyn is he is, by all intents and purposes, a god. He's the best, one of, if not the best swordsman alive. His magic is unbeatable. He is king of, Lordran, I believe is his kingdom.
And Orlando.
Anne Orlando, gotcha. He's the king of Anne Orlando. Everybody likes him. But he is so terrified of all of this just getting swept away from him. And so he begins to go to horrible extents so that his Age of Fire never ends.
So it's like your
It's
dad
ri-
with the thermostat.
Yes. Forgive me. I believe it's around this time they discover that the first flame, the thing that gave them all their power, constantly needs to be relit.
That comes a bit later.
Okay.
The first and foremost thing Gwyn becomes paranoid of is the furtive pygmy of humanity and their dark
Right,
soul against his great light. So he rounds all of them up, sticks them in the ringed city, and it's like, "Hey, I'm a god, right? You guys want to worship me?" And then he instills a new state religion of him.
Yep.
And everybody worships him. But that's not enough. Because Gwyn is extra paranoid and kind of crazy. So he also begins the curse of the undead.
There it is.
It's like, as another means of keeping things from changing. You die, no you. Uno reverse card.
Yep, the undead stem. Oh, continue, Brister.
Wait. Okay. So this guy, Gwyn,
Yes.
says, "I'm scared of losing my power of fire. I'm going to enslave humanity who has the most of it in one city which I control and state myself as a god.
Yes.
Yep.
Sees the natural cycle of these people who I assume act under moral laws, i.e. die after like 100 years.
Just about, yeah.
And he is a god.
Yep.
Yes.
He looked at all of that, his complete control of the land, their belief system, and generally his own holiness over their entire mortality, and said, I don't want to leave it a chance, though. What if they get
Yes.
What if they get back up without me realizing it? I gotta get them back up myself.
Yes, so he curses them with undeath.
There is a but to this. The thing about undeath is that it completely disrupts everything in human society.
Yeah,
And there's a little down. Continue.
yeah, I could have guessed that. Maybe Miyazaki has seen Dawn of the Dead or just loves Days Gone.
And there's a little catch to humanity's immortality. Hollowing. See, the immortality isn't true immortality. It has a catch where if someone dies, every time someone dies, obviously they're a little beaten down. Sure, they might get back up again, but the more they die, the more they begin to lose themselves, eventually going what's called hollow, where they forget who they are, they forget basically anybody they've ever known, and essentially become a mindless corpse, which I believe then they can be killed, if memory serves.
It's more that once hollowing means at its core just that you have given up on whatever it was you were trying to do. The undead continue to get back up because they feel they have a mission to complete. A lot of undead were clerics that went out to spread word of Gwyn's religion. And when they die, they get back up because, well, they're not done spreading that religion. When you go hollow, that is the ultimate jumping off point. You have given up on whatever was keeping you going through all your deaths before. And it's not so much that they can't come back to life, just that why bother when they've already given up?
So what you're saying is this Gwyn guy basically did the spiritual version of when you nut but she keeps sucking.
Pretty much. That's actually a very good way of putting it, surprisingly. And so now humanity's very confused. They can't die.
Confused.
They don't know what's going on. So they go right back to Gwyn.
It does get one step worse. I mentioned he rounded them all up into the ringed city, right?
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, it's not enough that he is the religion of the ringed city and the ruler of the ringed city, and he has cursed the ringed city with undeath. He's like, I need one more safeguard to really make sure those humans never, ever, 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 ever try to kill me. So he takes the ringed city. That dragon I mentioned he adopted, he puts that dragon as his guard dog for all eternity. Midir, the Dark Eater. And he takes that whole thing, Midir and the Ring City, and it's like, I'm going to trap you at the end of time.
Yep.
What?
Nothing will ever change. Nothing will ever happen. You will be at the end of all time forever. Goodbye. And he sends one of his daughters, Filianor, to ensure that happens. So yes, the Ringed City, the place where all the humans live, is now trapped at the end of forever. Toodles.
I will specify there are other human kingdoms, but the Ringed City had the inheritors of the Dark Soul.
Yeah.
Basically the most powerful, the only ones who could actually stand up to Gwyn.
Yeah.
Okay.
Humanity had spread by the time he shipped the Ringed City off to literally nowhere.
There's a reason why they're the pygmies and you play as humans in the game.
Right.
There's been enough time that they're essentially different people. Humans spawned from the pygmies, but they weren't pygmies themselves.
Right.
Yeah.
Evolution.
But yeah,
The Pygmy Lords resided in the Ringed City.
Yeah. Okay. That sounds, being transported to
was-
the end of time kind of sucky.
It
Yeah.
was the most major human city until such point as it was trapped
Yeah.
at the end of the world.
Yeah.
Yes.
Speaking of shitty cities, my girlfriend dumped me in Iron Keep. Now I'm all alone.
Oh, that's bad. Oh, no.
It's funny you mention Iron Keep because that's in Dark Souls 2. We're actually not even in Dark Souls 1 yet.
For fuck's
Yeah.
sake.
Look, we'll speed through this.
I don't think we need to. Things mostly take care of themselves after all the setup before Dark Souls 1. But yes.
Yeah.
Humanity has been dealt with, and now, the flame.
Yep.
You were beginning to explain.
So
Take it away.
it's around this time that Gwyn finds out the flame can start to fade. It begins flickering, and it's around this time he realizes he needs to constantly keep it reignited, or else his Age of Fire might end. And so him and the other great lords, Grim from Billy and Mandy, the Witch of Izalith, and all
fucking
of Gwyn's
nerd.
children. Yes, all of Gwyn's children. He gathers them up with the goal of keeping the flame ignited. And there's a few ways they go about this. Most famously, the Witch of Izalith herself tries to reignite the flame and turns herself into a horrible bed from which demons spawn.
Yes. Because she tried to be smart in a world where being smart apparently never pays off.
Yep. So she turned herself into the worst boss fight in Dark Souls 1.
Yes. She saw the flame fading, and Gwyn was like, do something about it. And the witch was like, I am literally a pyromancer. She snapped her fingers to try and make a new flame. And I guess the entire universe didn't like that.
She
So
touched the thermostat.
Yeah, she touched the thermostat and Dad hit her with the belt. So she's essentially out of the picture for now. Grim from Billy and Mandy, he's no help. He's kind of just doing his own thing. So it just leaves Gwyn. He has a few children. He forcefully transitions one, and that doesn't end well.
I'm sorry, what?
So
Gwendolyn does fine for himself.
until he gets eaten and piloted like a flesh puppet,
Okay, but that had nothing to do with the forced transition.
Is that
that's still not good.
is that part of the trend? Is this Pride Month?
So, without
Not
getting
yet.
too far into it, Gwyn had a son, right? He had a few children. One of them was born. He was supposed to embody the moon, right? He had his first. One of his children was the Sun Princess. And so his second child, obviously, the moon, right? The problem is the moon in this world is usually associated with femininity and women. He had a son. So he gave him a magic ring that essentially turned him into a woman, gave him a feminine name, told him to wear dresses, and said, all right, you're essentially my daughter now, and then just left it at that.
He took the Bowsette approach.
Yes.
I want a super crown.
So do I.
I want
yes.
a gun.
No.
I know which one of us is the FBI agent. So Gwen around this point decides, all right, throwing my children at the problem isn't going to work. Throwing my best friends at the problem isn't going to work. What happens if I throw myself at the problem? So he lit himself on fire trying to reignite the first flame. And it continue.
To his credit, it did work.
It did kind of work. It bought him some time, although in the process, he hollowed himself.
Yeah.
And this is where the events of Dark Souls 1 take place.
Oh, we're actually getting to the game now. Sick, huh?
Yes.
Yes.
The world is essentially the Age of Fire is ending once again, and the humans, the undead, are being called in by a prophecy that was likely made by Gwyn himself. Called in from all corners of the globe to essentially reignite the flame. Your player begins in an undead asylum, which was a thing made by the humans to just dump off undead to die quietly. You're broken out by a man named Oscar who gives you the prophecy to reignite the first flame, and that's what you go about doing. You go about the world meeting heroes from time, across time and space. For instance, the infamous Solaire of Astora, you meet him, and he's also set to reignite the flame. And
He fails.
he can fail.
Everyone that's not you fails.
It's actually, if you do save his life, it's actually said by Miyazaki that he goes on to reignite the flame in his own world.
Huh.
Yeah, so if you save his life, he actually does succeed. Of course,
Imagine
most of the time,
summoning NPCs.
of course, he dies unless you already know how to save him, which isn't a very easy process. But short of the story is, you go across the world, killing all of Gwyn's old friends. You get their souls. You go to Orlando, his kingdom, the seat of his power. You meet his children. One of them gives you the Lord Vessel, which lets you go to the The first flame. You go over to the first flame, and you kill Gwyn. But you're left with a choice. Throughout the game, you've been guided by a serpent, a giant serpent, who's basically saying, yeah, reignite the flame, this is going to be great. But along the way, a second serpent appears saying, don't reignite the flame, it's a lie. The Age of Darkness, you could rule over an Age of Darkness. How can you know you trust the gods? And so when you kill Gwyn, you're given a choice. Reignite the flame and continue the Age of Fire, or let it die out and start the Age of Darkness.
There are two wolves inside of you. Both of them are gay.
Pretty much.
They're kissing.
The Age of Darkness is implied to be the age of humanity, but canonically, the chosen undead, your character, reignites the flame in Dark Souls 1.
That's not 100% necessarily true.
Oh, are you telling me there's different interpretations as to this fucking spaghetti like storyline in the first fucking game?
Well, no, it's more that all the Dark Souls games are so disconnected from each other that, like, let's say the Chosen Undead, the protagonist of Dark Souls 1, could link the flame, the cycle continues, and eventually makes its way to Drang Lake and the Bearer of the Curse. Alternatively, the Chosen Undead does choose to usher in the Age of Dark, but eventually, it's implied that it's an entire cyclical thing. No matter how many times you bring about the Age of Dark, the Age of Fire will still spark back to life, spontaneous combustion, just like it did the first time.
Well, getting into it, I think Dark Souls 2 implies it was the Age of Fire that went with it. Either way, whatever you pick in Dark Souls 1, the game ends, and Dark Souls 2 begins an indeterminate amount of time later.
Yeah, speaking of starting again, me getting back into the dating scene after this episode, hey girl, did you spec into strength and dexterity? Because you got a quality build.
For context, strength and dex is called quality.
Int and Faith is called bad.
Dark Souls 2 begins an indeterminate amount of time later in the kingdom of... What is it, Nimi?
Drang Lake.
Drang Lake, yes. You play as someone called the Bearer of the Curse. You basically have all the same abilities from Dark Souls 1. You're a guy with the unfortunate curse of being unable to die. There is a few differences, however, in Dark Souls 2. Specifically around this version's king... Specifically around this cycle's essentially Gwyn, King Vendrick. Vendrick knew about the Age of Fire and the Age of Darkness. And instead of being forced to pick one, he decided he wasn't going to. He was going to find a different way. And so he went around killing, I believe, giants for their souls. And in this game, hollowing is so much of a bigger problem. In Dark Souls 1, whenever you die, you'd come back as just a corpse. You'd look ugly, but that would be your only downside, aside from not being able to use the multiplayer. In Dark Souls 2, every time you die, you lose a bit of your health, which caps out to, I believe you can lose up to 50% of your maximum health, and if you wear a ring or join a covenant, you can get that percentage lowered. But there's actual consequences for dying, more so than before.
Yeah, speaking of which, what's the reason why all undead float in water? They're hollow.
I knew you were going to say that.
That's the only joke I can make that is somewhat related, because all these are going to be so fucking disjointed. It's going to be like a goddamn Simon hitbox from Smash. I don't play Smash either. That's just a thing I know.
You know what a disjoint is?
Yeah. I got a very scattered catalog of information that I assure you none of this will stick into. This is going straight into the... This is where papers and receipts go where I should be able to do my taxes, but I never look at it and never do my taxes anyway, so just kind of there. This is just to prevent the IRS from kicking down my door and shooting my dog.
That's the ATF.
Is there a difference?
Yes, because I don't feel bad killing ATF agents.
You feel bad for the IRS?
I feel bad that they had to be tax people.
They chose their line of work.
No one really chooses anything in a capitalist society.
I mean, I chose. I don't know. This. I don't.
Vanish dark.
I don't know. This Guacamole Gamer
condemned
Fart 9000 felt like a pretty
humanity.
free choice.
And men assumed a fleeting form. These are the roots of our world. Men are props on the stage of life, and no matter how tender, how exquisite, a lie will remain a lie. Young Hollow, knowing this, do you still desire peace?
Can love really bloom on a battlefield? Yes, back to Dark Souls 2. King Vendrick essentially decides he's going to find a better way. And so he goes around, as I believe I could be wrong, and I look forward to getting comments about how wrong I am. He essentially goes around collecting giant souls and puts their souls into a crown. And so long as he wears that, he will never go hollow.
And
However,
he did.
yeah, he went hollow. Everyone around him, though, could. And so he reigned over a dying kingdom he willingly chose to forsake for a very, very long time, until one day I believe he couldn't take it anymore. And either he took off the crown or his wife, who was plotting against him, took the crown off of him. And he hollowed. Thus begins the plot of Dark Souls 2, where the queen is essentially trying to vie for power herself, and you've got to go through the land of Drang Lake, showing people what for. Dark Souls 2 is largely unconnected to Dark Souls 1. There are plenty of references, but it's very much its own story. You know, you can run into a Creighton and Pate, have fun with them, fight a bunch of cool bosses, and then you deal with that.
Yeah, speaking of which, I have a fetish for fighting a Dark Souls boss. It's rather rare. That's why it's a nameless kink.
Many monarchs have come and gone.
I don't know what this bit
One
is,
drowned in
Nimue.
poison, another succumbed to flame. Still another slumbers in a realm of ice. Not one of them stood here as you do now. You, conqueror of adversities, give us your answer.
Why were Gale's shoes black?
Why?
He sought the Dark Soul.
Okay, we have to move on. We have to move on. Generally, though, the ending of Dark Souls 2 doesn't matter. At least not in the grand scheme of things. Either you ascend to what's called the Throne of Want, which is actually just the developers being meta. The Throne of Want doesn't mean anything. It's meta. It's a meta quote. It's a meta thing for the nature of playing video games itself. Or you reject the Throne of Want and do something else with your life. I don't know.
This sounds a lot like the line at Walmart. I call the line at Walmart the Throne of Want.
Beyond the scope of light, beyond the reach of dark. What could possibly await us? And yet we seek it insatiably. Such is our fate.
I mean, you seem to keep quoting this game that when you were playing it in our Discord call, fucking hate.
That quote she just said is the line you get if you reject the throne. It's kind of a line itself about why do we play video games? What are we hoping to achieve? Dark Souls 2 is a very flawed game, but it had a lot of interesting ideas, and I think that's what keeps it very relevant. It had something to say, it just didn't know how to say it.
More or less, the developers knew how to say it, just that instead of having a full sentence to say it, they had the space in between a gun going off and the bullet reaching the back of their head, and the parent company sitting with the barrel right pressed up against their skull.
Basically. But now we get into Dark Souls 3. A little bit of behind the scenes, Dark Souls 3 was basically made in response to people's very lukewarm reaction to Dark Souls 2. They decided that Dark Souls 3 was going to be filled with fan service. It was going to be fan service the game.
And it was.
People didn't like the fact that Dark Souls 2 was kind of weird and didn't connect to Dark Souls 1 and was very hard. As well, it had a lot of influences from Bloodborne. Bloodborne was a game which came out between 2 and 3, basically an average day in London. It slowly starts as sort of Bram Stoker-inspired horror action before moving into Lovecraftian elements.
Yeah,
the thing about Bloodborne,
you fuck a squid in that one, right?
you can become a squid in that one.
Is that? Oh my god, is this Squid Game?
Squid Game.
No.
You're a
The thing
kid.
about-
You're a squid. You're a kid. You're a squid.
The thing about Bloodborne, though, that defined it was Dark Souls 1 and 2 were very slow games, deliberately. An enemy would swing at you, and you'd have a few seconds to decide, am I going to dodge? Am I going to block? It was all about enemy responds with A, so you've got to respond with B or C. Bloodborne was all about reaction. It was aggressive. You had to be constantly moving, hitting, dancing in and out. And so when they made Dark Souls 3 and they saw how much people liked Bloodborne, they changed Dark Souls 3 to be more in line with Bloodborne, their combat system. Now enemies were way faster. Combat was faster. You were a lot more nimble.
Shields are bad.
Yes, shields are bad. And so Dark Souls 3 was born. It would be a game all about fan service and a game with the speed of Bloodborne, but the mechanics of Dark Souls.
So what you're saying is, Dark Souls 3 is just Dark Souls 1 with truck nuts?
That's actually not a very unpopular opinion. So Dark Souls 3 begins.
I feel that truck nuts are very unpopular.
It's been an indeterminate amount of time between Dark Souls 2 and 3, and once again, the Age of Fire is ending, but it's a bit different this time. Basically, the cycle of fire and darkness has been going on for millennia, and the world at this point is literally starting to decay at the core. Everything is rotting. The kingdom you're in, the kingdom of Lothric, is built on the bones of the previous two kingdoms. In fact, you can actually revisit areas of Dark Souls 1 in Dark Souls 3 and see what happened to them. I believe Lost Izalith is a secret area called the Smoldering Lake in Dark Souls 3.
I mean, is there really much segregation you can have for a kingdom that already was fucked when you got out of it?
It's pretty bad. The whole theme of Dark Souls 3 is about the dangers of endlessly trying to keep the past going. The dangers of not moving on.
Everyone in the world's just like looking at the world, literally lakes of fire, and thinking, I fucked up my soup.
Pretty much. And so in Dark Souls 3, basically people took Gwyn's example and like, alright, we gotta link the flame. So the Lothric line of kings, some princes are born. The eldest prince is Lothric's the elder prince, right, Nimi, or is he the younger prince?
Lorien is the elder prince.
Okay, Lorien. Little Lorien and Lothric are born, and basically, I believe Lothric is supposed to set himself on fire to keep the world going.
Yes, Lorien is super cool and awesome and a great warrior. He goes and fights demons for like a couple decades. Lothric is weak, frail, and not pog. So like, okay, yeah, you're gonna light yourself on fire while your brother keeps fighting demons.
A femboy and a trad male were born.
There
And the femboy was...
there are two wolves inside of you.
The femboy was essentially supposed to light himself on fire to keep the world going.
Yeah,
the two of them
being
decided...
the flaming one.
Yes. The two of them essentially decided, what if we didn't do that? And then the world kind of didn't know how to react to that. It got so bad that they weren't going to reignite the flame, that the flame itself took matters into its own hand, and it started resurrecting people who had already reignited it. So we'll get there.
Okay.
So they create what are called the Lords of Cinder, heroes and kings, mighty warriors who has already reignited the flame at the cost of their own lives. And as Nimu's going to say,
the problem is, these Lords of Cinder had already lit themselves on fire and figured out, wow, that fucking sucks. Not to mention, they've been awoken in a world they don't recognize or care about.
Yep.
Yorm was the Lord of the Profaned Capital. He's woken up by the Bell of Awakening, looks at the Profaned Capital and is like, shit, the Profaned Capital doesn't exist anymore. And he's like, well, what is my motivation to light myself on fire again if the city I was trying to protect no longer exists?
the Abyss Watchers, the fanboy club of a character we didn't talk about, Artorias of the Abyss, they wake up. These awesome warriors dedicated to fighting something called the Abyss wake up. They're not in their kingdom, and worst of all, they got corrupted by the Abyss.
Yep.
Who
It's
knew?
all over, Farron.
Who knew? Hey guys, this thing we worship because it's deep, dark, and has a bunch of shit we don't know about. Yeah, it wasn't good. All good.
They didn't worship it; they fought it.
It's a big thing.
The thing is, the Abyss always finds a way to stick to your shoes. Fight it as much as you want. Try as hard as you might. It will always find a way to seep in.
So what you're saying is they needed.
And it's rough. It's coarse. It's irritating. It gets everywhere.
You needed one of those those things for dogs where they get muddy and you put their pads into it, so they'll pause and you just scrub it.
Yep. And as well, things also got worse. Humanity.
Yeah.
Humanity is also everything humanity touches. Also, kind of gets a little bit of gross humanness on it.
Yeah.
The thing that makes humans special in this thing is they have what's called humanity, little dark spirits inside them. And whenever humanity interacts with something that isn't human, it gets horribly mutated, and that started happening to everything too.
Because humanity is born of the Abyss we were just talking about.
The dark soul, the dark soul is of the Abyss, or it is the Abyss, or maybe it's not. It's kind of unclear.
Okay.
Point is, humans actually sort of not evil, but they are objectively on the dark side in this lore, as opposed to the light side as usual fantasy goes.
And so Dark Souls 3 begins as the fire, the first flame, tries one last thing to keep itself going. It resurrects someone who failed to reignite it. Someone who died and went hollow along the way. Someone who maybe was racing to the flame and got beat by someone else. It resurrects the fuck up. And
The
so
longest
the
of long shots.
Yep. And so the game begins. You are the Ashen One. To my knowledge, you are special. Unlike in Dark Souls 1 and 2, the Bearer of the Curse and the Chosen Undead, you're special as you're one of, if not the only Ashen One. There's the Lords of Cinders, but to my knowledge, you never run into another non-boss Ashen One.
Sort of. The Ashen One is just your generic player, your generic title as a player. What you are is an Unkindled, and you do meet others of those.
Okay.
Henri, Hawkwood, and Sigurd.
Okay, so there is a few of you running around.
Yeah. Speaking
There
about
is
it,
specifically one Unkindled for each Lord of Cinder.
yeah. Speaking of running around, what's the Japanese player's favorite coffee shop?
What?
The Smoldering Lake. They have the best ballista.
That one's not even good. That's such a stretch.
How about this one? Naito disguised himself as a wheel skeleton.
Nina.
Okay. Why did Gale cut the power supply to South Korea?
Why?
He prefers the Dark Soul.
That one's all right. But the game starts, and your job is to kill the Lords of Cinder because they wouldn't light themselves on fire, the selfish pricks, and it's your job to go light yourself on fire.
Yeah.
However, along the game, as the game goes on, many, many characters tell you, don't reignite the flame. The entire world around you is dying in a way that maybe can't be helped. And there's a few alternate endings, but obviously you can choose to reignite the flame. However, in Dark Souls 1, when you reignite that flame, it's a glorious bonfire. It's huge. It's big. You feel kind of what Gwyn must have felt. It's something glorious. When you reignite the flame in Dark Souls 3, it's a quiet, somber moment as the flame's barely strong enough to keep itself alight. So Dark Souls 3 is all about just letting the fucking thing die.
It's like a country mom who has like a 13-year-old dog, one of those small ones with the crusty eyes. It now just looks like a fucking Swiffer that got put through the fucking dryer.
Oh.
It's doing its best.
Listen, look, it's drinking water. It's fine. And no, that's not how dogs are supposed to do. That shouldn't be an accomplishment.
Yes, it's your job to essentially go either reignite the flame or, in all honesty, just let it die. Uh,
Or steal it and begin the age of humanity.
or just
We
nab
don't
it
have
and
to
try to
talk
do
about
something else.
Yuria.
Do
I
it-
only want
yeah.
her to get on me.
Do a reverse Prometheus.
Yes, do a reverse Prometheus. And honestly, it's pretty simple. You go throughout the game, seeing echoes of Dark Souls 1 and 2. For instance, armor sets of characters like forgive me, Sif and Artorias. Artorias and Solaire's armor appear in the game that you can wield. The Onion Knight, a different Onion Knight, appears in the one in Dark Souls 1. Firelink Shrine, the main hub of the first game, appears again. Dark Sun Gwendolyn, one of the bosses from Dark Souls 1, is essentially his corpse is being piloted as a flesh puppet by one of the Lords of Cinder. And during so you finally got all your souls of cinder, right? And it's your time. It's your job to go finally put the first flame out. Instead, you go on a quick vacation trip to go hang out with Gale in the painted world of Ariandel and the Ringed City.
Yes. DLC time.
In Dark Souls 1, there was the painted world of, what was it, Arianis? No.
Ariamis.
Ariamis. Essentially, it's a world within a world created by people to escape the decay of the outside. Whenever the painting is decaying, unlike Gwen, who tries at all times to keep it going, they'll just paint a new painting and destroy the old one. So in Dark Souls 1, you have to stop someone from essentially trying to let the other one rot. You have to start clean. And in Dark Souls 3, it's the same thing. But you actually have to help a painter paint the new world.
Ariandel is bad. Don't buy it.
And so you finish Ashes of
City.
You finish Ashes of Ariandel, and you essentially say, "Hey, I'm going to help you, mysterious little girl, paint a new painting." And she needs two things: inspiration and pigment. Her inspiration was the world you just got finished exploring, Ariandel, but the pigment takes you to the Ringed City at the end of time. When you go to the Ringed City, you actually start outside in something called the Dreg Heap. And if you thought the world couldn't get any worse, it got worse. It's thousands of years into the future, and the entire world is coated in ash and death. You can see the ruins of the kingdom you spent the entire game exploring just barely sticking up through the ash. Locations from all three games have been mashed together incomprehensibly. And you've got to go explore the Ringed City. And we're kind of running tight on time, so I'm not going to spend too much time discussing the Ringed City. You do meet a few characters from Dark Souls 3, I believe, most famously is Patches. He somehow made it to the end of time.
Yep. The Amnesiac Lap. And From Software gave him a beautiful send-off. It's really cool how they wrote that very nice character arc for him, and then never used him again in a way that they could muddy the waters after they gave him such a wonderful send-off. Why the fuck is Patches in Elden Ring?
I liked Patches in Elden Ring. But
no, regardless of how good he is, why is he there?
Why is he in Demon Souls?
He got such a perfect ending in the Ringed City.
Why is he in Mech Warrior 2? Yes, the Ringed City happens. You need to go find the Dark Soul. And a lot happened, but basically the DLC ends with, throughout the thing, you're friends with a guy named Gale, Slave Knight Gale, the man you've been talking about in your jokes all day. He was one of the first undead ever, from the time of Gwyn, perhaps even before Gwyn. In the early days, before humanity really knew what the undead were, they had these things called slave knights, where they figured, hey, this guy can't die, let's give him some armor and make him do whatever we want for all of eternity. He lasted longer than the people he served.
Yeah.
He's
just a slave knight.
He's working for the painter, too. And so, as you both are looking for the Dark Soul, you get to the city at the end of time, the Pygmies who are given the Dark Soul. It's the end of time. They're too weak to really do anything. Their blood isn't going to be enough. So Gale has been faced with failure. What does he do with the Pygmies who don't have enough Dark Soul juice left in them to make the painting? I'll let you guess on this one, Brister.
Well, maybe he goes down to Michael's, gets some cheap acrylics, some store brand stuff, gets a 8x8 easel, and just kind of paints a little happy bird in his wine mom support group where they all paint and pretend they don't take pills at home to cope with the loneliness of traditional housewife living.
Close.
Nope, he drinks their blood.
He eats the pygmies and drinks their blood.
Ah, yes, the recycle approach.
So he eats the pygmies, drinks their blood, and now the dark soul's in him. And so you have to kill him.
It is John Darksouls.
He's been able to accrue as much of the dark soul as he can, but you're undead too. You've got some dark soul too. So it comes down to which of you can claim the other's dark soul.
You're forced to kill him, and eventually you have the dark soul.
Yeah.
You give it to the little girl, and she said she's going to paint a new world. She's going to paint a new world. One for Uncle Gale. I hope he comes home soon. Yeah, she says something along those lines. She actually... continue.
The world she paints turns out to be the first Super Mario game.
That's actually probably Bloodborne.
And Gale turns into Shigeru Miyamoto.
No.
It's wildly believed that the world she paints is actually the world of Bloodborne.
Wow, this fucking kid is messed up.
But yes, she actually offers to name the painting after you if your character can even remember their name. But aside from that, we finally get to the end of Dark Souls 3. You've gotten to the first flame. You've killed the Lords of Cinder. You've ensured that a new world can be born through the painting. And so you have to fight a man called the Soul of Cinder. The essence, the memory, the skills of every single person who had ever reignited the flame is in that one body, a husk of burnt armor with a blade that morphs into the weapons of those who reignited the flame. In Phase 1, he's a motherfucker. Constantly switching his weapon into different forms, from staff to sword to curved sword to spear. Constantly evading you with techniques that you can actually learn. In fact, he has a unique item, or a unique thing. In Dark Souls 1, there was a ring that turned your little dodge into a ninja flip. The ring's in Dark Souls 3, but it doesn't let you ninja flip, yet this boss can do the ninja flip. In Phase 1, you beat him down. And in Phase 2, Gwyn is back, baby. Fun. Gwyn is back. The first flame brings up the memory of Gwyn. And so Gwyn is kind of brought back to life for a moment. It depends on your interpretation. Either it's just Gwyn's memory, or Gwyn literally has been brought back to life to possess this thing. Whatever the matter is, Gwyn's music starts playing and he starts doing Gwyn's moves from Dark Souls 1.
Except he can't be parried this time, so he's actually difficult.
Yes. Nonetheless, you kill the Soul of Cinder, and you're left with a few choices. You could reignite the flame, you could let it die out with the help of the Firekeeper and start an Age of Darkness, or you could steal the flame, starting the Age of Humanity. And that's the story of Dark Souls.
A journey from nowhere to here.
Yep.
So let me get this straight. You open in Detroit, bunch of 4 people self-cannibalize into paranoia.
Mm-hmm.
The second game is you questioning why you're even doing any of this.
Yep.
And the third game is starting fresh.
That's actually a beautiful way of putting it.
This is just
Pretty
fucking
much.
8 Mile.
What?
This is just a story of 8 Mile. These games are fucking stupid.
It's a journey that starts with the Asylum Demon, and a journey that ends with Gale the Slave Knight.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's a metaphor for like white trash poverty or something. I'm pretty sure one of those is like fucking Marshall Mathers' mom.
You start as a prophesized hero vanquishing a demon trying to keep you in chains. You end as 2 nobodies in the middle of nowhere fighting over nothing.
Yeah, that's Eminem to when he was facing like every white suburban mom to Eminem now. This is just a fucking 8 Mile. I've seen 8 Mile. Why did you told me this is a good game?
Well, we could do the lore of Elden Ring next episode.
I'd rather castrate myself with a lobster.
What about the lore of Sekiro?
I haven't finished Sekiro yet.
I'd rather fucking.
Oh, that's right. I'm sorry.
I'd rather pulvel into a pile of cacti.
Well, Brister, this has been a long and strange journey. What have you learned from it?
I learned that one, do not touch that thermostat, or else moths will eat you. I learned that if you play video games, you're basically Sisyphus, and not even a good kind. You're just lame. And the third one, I learned that when it's all said and done, make sure to clear your game save files. That way your little brother can play.
Well, I suppose that was the best possible lessons we were getting out of you. Now it's been about an hour, and I think it's time to wrap this up, folks.
For what it's worth, I learned that we should bury Brian alive somewhere in the Arizona desert, and we should do the podcast together from now on.
I like him well enough. I need his energy. I'm incomplete without my lovely partner here on the podcast.
All right.
I thought that was me.
I'm incomplete in the rest of my life without you.
We got one in. Anyway, this has been been the Dabble and Bell podcast. I have been your host, Brister XD.
And I've been your co-host, Pipsqueak, with...
I have been here.
And
_nimble _.
And I wish you all a why was my meme downvoted? It was a repost. Back to the beginning, baby.
Woohoo!